Now this is the last bit of interfacing we need to do. This is the 2-inch piece. It just goes to the wrong side of the fabric. Right along the edge. Make sure your edge is nice and even, nice and neat, and then just press. As soon as we're done pressing this on, we're going to do a zigzag stitch all the way down the outside edge. Just take your time, iron nice and easy. I tend to pin my fabrics directly to the ironing board. And that's really the reason most of them have fabric, is so you can do that. Put my shoulder in my shoulder. Pull this all down just a touch. This doesn't quite line up with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this down a little bit, move all this over just a touch, and trim it across. Zippers. I hate zippers. I really hate zippers. So all I've done is take the side, and it was folded and pinned right at the edge of the interfacing. I put a mark 1 inch in, because that is where the center of the zipper needs to fall. So you want to line it up as best you can for 1 inch in. Pin carefully through the edge, all the way down. When you're done with it, this is a separating zipper, by the way. So when you're all the way done, unzip, let your pins, take it off, and we're going to do a zigzag stitch all the way up the edge. So we're just going to do a zigzag stitch down here. And I know, I can hear all of you screaming. I get it. This is not how you're supposed to do zippers. But there was a behind the scenes with Mark Hamill, and he had his jumpsuit most of the way open. And the zipper was sewn exactly like this, which is why I do this. It's the only reason I do this. This is how you have to do the zipper on this stupid jumpsuit if you want it to be at least close to canon. Just a simple zigzag all the way down. Luckily this way, you don't need a zipper foot. You can just ride the edge of your foot along the edge of the zipper. So it does have some advantage. And like with most costuming, it's much faster than the right way. Excuse me. Come on. Oh my, the goodness. Jeez Louise. All right. I tend to flip them around and then do a straight stitch right along the edge here, just for a little extra support. All right, let's back out and take a look at the other side. Again, fold pin, mark on the half point, or mark on the 1 inch. We want to fold it over and try and line up as best we can our seams here, as this is the only shot we're going to really get to make all these seams line up. So what I'm trying to do is make sure that this center line is on the center of the zipper. Nothing else really matters at this point. Take an extra pin, put it right there, through everything, doesn't matter. But what that's going to allow us to do is line this top one up. Because as long as we get a good lock on the top, we can work from the top down. Everything should line up relatively well. But as you look, get that chalk line goes dead center of the zipper. Up. And I'm going to grab onto this side and pin. That's it. Pull this pin, I open it up, I unzip the whole thing, and now I have a good frame of reference for this. That'll keep us laterally in place. All we have to do is pin this down like we did on that side, and sew just through this flap. We don't sew through the whole thing, just through this flap. Because that'll allow us to fold it over, put a stitch along here, lock the zipper in place, and keep it all nice and hidden. Let me pin all this real quick, and I'll show you what I mean. So now I don't need this anymore. I can pull these pins. I'm just lining the center of the teeth, or this teeth where the center would be, along my chalk line. Now that I have one good pin in, I can pull this pin and pin it up here. So then we just work our way down. Again, not the right way to do zippers, but the way we have to do zippers on these jumpsuits to keep them relatively canon. So we're just going to do a zigzag stitch and then straight up. All I'm paying attention to is that this gap is about the same the whole length down. Follows my marks. It's nice and easy. Just like the other side, we're going to do a zigzag stitch. Going to follow the edge of the zipper itself. Keep our fabric nice and taut. Make sure on this side we're only going through one layer. Then we spin it around and just do a single stitch all the way down. And if we get everything lined up right, when we zip this closed, all our seams should match up. Hey, look at that. It's not perfect. That's not too shabby. Nice. Now we have to take care of the inseam. All right, keep the pattern simple. I made the left and the right side symmetrical. You can't do that with this, so we're gonna have to do a slight modification. All we do is trace this side to this side. Once it's zip closed, I flipped it over, I turned it inside out. I pinned this edge and a couple of pins here, because the flatter you can make this part, easier everything else is going to be at this point. So all I did, line it up as best I can, right? You zip it closed, you pin that nice and flat, and we're going to trim this part away and this part away. We're going to stitch along here, and we're going to go up about an inch. We're going to go to about there. So just all along here, and then at our normal 1/2 inch seam allowance after we cut this part right here. Then we trim this excess off. From here we're going to sew 1/2 inch, zigzag to lock it in place. I'm going to stop here, as this is the edge of the fabric. Then we're going to flip it over and finish seam this. We're going to take this edge and we're going to taper it all the way down, probably to about here-ish. Since we're here, everything's pinned. Might as well do that now. Just throw in a couple of pins, cut the excess off. And the only reason we're doing this is because I wanted to make the left and right sides as symmetrical as possible. I didn't want to, if these two pieces had gotten switched while we were halfway through, it'd be devastating because you'd have the wrong piece on the wrong side. This way, with just a slight modification, it doesn't matter which way it is. This is costuming. It's not the right way to do it. Again, it's the easy way to do it. So now I'm starting with my needle on the edge of the interfacing here. I'm going to do a quick back and forth to lock my stitch in. And then I'm just going to go 1/2 inch all the way along here. Then a zigzag to lock the edge. Pull all the pins. And then we're going to turn it right side out. So now we're going to top stitch. And I have a pin marked where that stitch we just did ended. Then we do our 1 millimeter from the edge. So this is where we're at now. Believe it or not, we're mostly done. I just got these pinned down, and I'm pinning them between both of these, because in a minute we're about to flip it inside out. Turn it around. We're going to fold this piece over, and then we're going to run a stitch along this edge. That's going to lock that whole side in place. But first, we need to flip these over and pin them, so they're out of the way. All right, and then we're going to stitch all the way down to here. Here we're going to stop, fold this back, and stitch this. So we stitch this flap closed. We're also going to go over the zipper just so we can lock it down because it's a separating zipper. We don't need a separating zipper. It's what they had. All right, now we just pull all of our pins, see where we're at. All right, we flipped everything right side out. We're going to do a reinforcement stitch. This is where we ended the top stitch we just did, and this is where we ended the double stitch for along the crotch. We're going to do a reinforcement stitch, straight stitch, and a reinforcement stitch. I marked where the zipper is because my I don't want to shove my needle through there, break a needle that way. Angle it. We might be able to go right between the teeth. Hey, some days you're the windshield. Back to reinforce stitch. Easy peasy. Okay, now flipped inside out, this is what we just did. Here's a double stitch, straight stitch, and then the reinforced stitch. What that does is it locks this tab down, it stops the zipper from unzipping all the way and separating, keeps everything nice and tidy, trim up some loose threads, but now we're on to inseam. And now we're gonna line up these two middle seams, just edge to edge, make them nice and neat. We're gonna pin this, and then pin all the way down one leg and all the way down the other. As soon as we're done with that, we do a 1/2 inch seam and then a zigzag seam to lock the thread in. All right, the hard part's done. Now the fiddly bits happen. We're doing the neck next.